outside the Tuto building. As an EMS student, you attend lectures in Tuto, Chancellors, and Centenary. Lectures are approximately 50 minutes long.
On average, you'll have 6 classes per day and 2 or 3 practicals per week. Here at UP, we have state-of-the-art facilities put in place specifically to make your learning experience of a higher standard.
In general, you'll have semester modules, but you can also have year modules, so don't forget to attend all your lectures. In first year, your subjects are quite broad, but as you progress in your university career, your degree becomes more specialized.
The EMS faculty has some of the best lecturers in South Africa who are experts in their field, and they'll always be welcoming and ready to help you.
The University of Pretoria uses hybrid learning.
What exactly is hybrid learning?
Hybrid learning means that some content is actually discussed in class, whereas the other is used on an online system like ClickUp.
Oh, now I see why they call the online test we do ClickUp test. It's quite clever, I must say.
That's why I choose UP.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Professor Heinrich Bollmann from the Department of Economics. Thanks for joining our Faculty of Economic and Management Science. During this session, we're going to tell you a whole lot of things, some that might be useful to you, some perhaps not so much, but we'll have fun nonetheless. We're going to tell you about the various programs, what it involves, and what you should choose to study with us here at the University of Pretoria. In just a moment, our Dean of the Faculty, Prof. Elspie Loots, will give us her opening address before we discuss the actual details of the program with our panelists here, including Prof. Steve Koch, Dr. Nichols, and Dr. Dumakude. Later on during the session, we'll hold a Q&A with our panelists that I will introduce in a moment. To those of you on Facebook, make sure to post your questions over the course of the next couple of minutes. There's a YouTube session, and please get involved. Our social media handles will be popping up throughout the show so that you can follow us. You'll also have 2 opportunities to take home a bookmark voucher worth 1,000 Rand. So make sure to use the hashtag UPEMS to stand a chance of winning. Now it gives me great pleasure to welcome our Dean of the Faculty, Prof. Loots. Prof. Loots, take it away.
Welcome to the Faculty of Economic and Management Sciences virtual event. I'm Professor Elspie Loots, the Dean of the Faculty. The faculty hosts 8 departments and a School for Public Management and Administration. We are a proud member of the internationally renowned AACSB. Continued accreditation by national and international professional and statutory bodies clearly provide evidence of the quality of our programs. All our subject areas have in recent years been included in international subject ranking lists, with the most recent one being the 2020 Shanghai Rankings Global Ranking of Academic Subjects, where we were in the #1 spot for finance and a joint first for economics in South Africa. Allow me to highlight why you need to choose UP for your BCom or BAdmin studies. The Department of Economics, recently ranked tied first in the country, has an unrivaled reputation in generating well-qualified economists. Choose the Faculty of Economic and Management Sciences at the University of Pretoria. Choose UP.
Thank you, Prof. Loots. Next up, we've got our fearless leader, Head of Department, Professor Steve Koch, who's going to give us all the details you need to know to apply successfully to a program in our department. Prof. Koch.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Steve Koch, and I'm the head of the Department of Economics. I'd like to thank you for your interest in economics and/or econometrics. Over the next few minutes, I'll try to tell you a bit about the department, our degrees, and where our students are now. Following that, I will join a few of my colleagues for a Q&A session. Please, if there's something that I have not addressed or something that is not clear, do not hesitate to ask us during that time. The Department of Economics at the University of Pretoria is ranked amongst the top 150 to 200 departments in economics in the world, and in the top 3 in Africa. Considering there are tens of thousands of economics departments in the world and hundreds on the continent, we believe that is an outstanding accomplishment. One of the main reasons for our success is the quality and diversity of our academic staff. As you can see from this slide, many of our academic members have received their qualifications from universities around the world. In my view, we have one of the most culturally diverse departments in any field in the university and in the country. The diversity is an important feature of our success. Economists operate in a wide range of areas, often working with individuals with a completely different frame of reference. Being exposed to that diversity can help our students navigate far beyond the borders of economics. I would now like to point out some of the diversity in our field across the world. So, there are some rather famous and, well, excessively rich economics graduates. Admittedly, studying economics is unlikely to make you a great golfer like Tiger, or the head of the UN, or even president of South Africa. However, it will give you the training to succeed in most any endeavor you might undertake. Some other notable economists include Arnold, Kate Blanchett, and Elon Musk, as well as 3 of the last 6 US presidents, previous presidents of India, and many other countries. Some of you might have heard of Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, David Rockefeller, the CEO of Chase Manhattan, Fred Smith, the CEO of FedEx, and even Melinda Gates. Most notable to me is the fact that the first PhD ever awarded to an African-American woman was awarded in economics. As for our students, recent graduates have worked or do work internationally at, for example, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and the African Development Bank. Locally, our graduates have been employed as academics in a number of South African higher education institutions, as well as top researchers by each of the major banks and the South African Reserve Bank. A number of departments in government, such as DTI, Labor, and National Treasury. Our graduates have also worked in the consulting industry and a number of other quasi-governmental agencies. Although this is far from an exhaustive list, in the last few days, one of our graduates was named Thomson & Reuters Economist of the Year for South Africa. In addition to successes in their work, our students have been successful as students outside of Pretoria. Some of our students have completed their M degrees at the London School of Economics, as well as top universities in Japan, Europe, and America. Former students are also either busy completing or have completed PhDs in economics. This includes students who have studied in Australia and are studying in the US. Before closing, I would like to highlight just a few features of the degree program that are of interest. The first is that the requisite APS for entry to either economics or econometrics is a 32. For econometrics, which includes mathematical statistics as part of the program, that means a math mark that is slightly higher than the one for economics. The math mark for econometrics is 70 to 79, and for economics it's 60 to 69. For more information, please see the department and faculty's and university's web pages. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Prof. Koch. Perhaps I can emphasize there again, one of the features I love most about the department is certainly the diversity. Not just in terms of the coursework offerings we have, but also in terms of both staff and students. I think if we include our postdoc students, we've got every corner and country in the world just about covered, perhaps barring Alaska. All right, so as I mentioned earlier, we'd love for you to engage with us online, follow us on Facebook, leave your comments to stand a chance of winning one of the 2 bookmark vouchers, which we'll hand out in a couple of minutes. Let's see what comments has been coming through. So we've got Francis Lowe, who says, we're so excited, can't wait for this one. Hopefully next year I can join the TICS economics family. We look forward to seeing you, Francis. Jamila also notes, I'm looking forward to joining the EMS faculty, and Jamila will certainly look forward to seeing you in our economics classrooms. All right, so promises. So it's time to hand out the first of our bookmark giveaways. And congratulations to Jamila. You win $1,000 worth of goodies from Bookmark on campus. All right, let's move on then to our Q&A. So we've had various questions submitted leading up to this, and let me introduce my panelists just quickly again, if we can allow for that. I've got HOD Steve here, we've got Nikki, and we've got Duma, who's going to be taking some questions with me. All right. First question we have from Andre. How will I know that my application was successful? Right now, Andre, I can quickly tell you that most of this happens online, and faculty admin will be in contact with you to let you know how the process is unfolding and what the status is. Siamtanda asked, what interested you in economics? And I think this is a very important question, right? Because we all started somewhere, something lit that fire under us and pulled that trigger as far as how we got into this field. What were the things that interested us most? I think for myself, I was lucky enough to have a wonderful high school economics teacher that we could discuss things that certainly fell without the textbook, not just what was in it. But let's have a chat to our panelists here and see, Duma,
Sure.
What got you going in our field?
All right, so this takes me a number of years back. So I also did economics in high school. And what always interested me about economics was the fact that you always had lively discussions around how to get to some potential solution. And so you could either have different proposed ways to get to a particular point, or they could get to a single point but get to it in two different ways. And so there was always an opinion that could be had. And so that primarily interested me, and so that's why I then opted to study economics at the University of Pretoria, actually.
Yeah, beautiful. I mean, we struggle to agree on things, right, as economists, but that's 100%. What makes it so great, right? Is,
100%.
we're always engaging, finding new ideas, new ways of looking at it. Now, Nikki, you've got an interesting background and an interesting route that perhaps our viewers would like to hear about.
Sure. So I actually originally studied psychology, so I have a master's degree in psychology. And I did do an economics undergrad at that time, back in the 90s. And at that time, I enjoyed economics. It was interesting, but I never associated it with the kind of work I do now. So a few years later on, I actually read the book for economics, which I guess highlighted to me that economics can answer so much more than what we typically think of as macroeconomic questions, like, you know, what is the high interest rates going to do? What is low interest rates going to do? Yeah, I guess that opened up the behavioral field, which is the field that I now work in.
Excellent. Steve?
Yes?
Just take it easy on us. How did you get into this field? You've had a long road to where you are now.
Yeah, many more years back than Duma. I won't mention how many. I had a Holocaust survivor as my first lecturer in economics at Oregon State University. And he was the most positive as well as the most demanding individual I'd ever met. And he pushed us, but not only did he push us, he told us stories about how economics worked in the Holocaust camp, and I was just fascinated. I couldn't get enough of the stories he had to tell us, and I just kept going from there.
Yeah. Look, to the listeners out there and the viewers, you know, economics is such a beautiful science. It's a foundational science. The range of questions that could be asked and answered is almost endless. So really, if you have a curious mind, if you're skeptical about what you see around you, this is really a field that I encourage you to get into. All right, so speaking of foundational sciences, which of course makes economics the only one in this faculty for which a Nobel Prize is awarded, the next question we have from Sarah is, what recent Nobel Prizes did we find interesting, and how has it influenced us? From my side, unfortunately, it's not such a recent prize, but if we go all the way back to one of the early Nobel Prize winners, Vasily Leontiev, you know, the system of accounting and in economics and you know, sort of the early laying the foundation for general equilibrium modeling and the databases that underpin that was certainly something that's played a big role in my career. There's been many others, but let's have a listen to Duma. Which of the Nobel Prizes have really influenced your work and thoughts?
Sure. I think similar to you, the Nobel that I look to, or at least the Nobel laureate that I look to as for inspiration, he was awarded his in 1992, and which is quite some time back. And it's Gary Becker, and what he did is that he used economic, or at least an economic way of thinking and applied it to issues that weren't really thought to be economic-related issues at the time. So thinking about discrimination and what the impacts of discrimination ultimately are. or even questions around why do individuals choose to actually pursue education in the same way that a firm would actually invest in machines to help produce produce their products and services. And so I think he's the one individual that has had the most impact on my career as an economist, in the sense that it has inspired me to think very creatively around economic issues.
Nikki?
Yeah, I guess for me there's two. The first is actually a psychologist who managed to get himself a Nobel Prize in economics, which is no mean feat, and that is Daniel Kahneman. In fact, both of my favorite Nobel Prize winners have written very readable books, if any of you guys are interested in reading a little more. So Kahneman wrote a book called Thinking Fast and Slow, which is very accessible. It's not kind of a textbook, but it talks a little bit about some of his work. And the second one is Richard Thaler, who's known as the father of behavioral economics, which is my field of interest. And he's also written a couple of very readable, fun books. But what I like about both of their research is that they question a lot of things that were accepted in economics for many years. And so, for instance, we've said that people are very rational in the way they make decisions. And what both of these people have done has been to look at actual behavior and noted ways in which people don't necessarily behave rationally. And this work has really made a big difference to the field of economics, because it's led to a lot of our assumptions being updated and a lot of our models starting to incorporate these aspects of actual human behavior, which of course means that our models can give us better predictions. So,
yeah, that's amazing. Steve?
So many to choose from. Quite plausibly, I'd have to go with somebody like James Heckman, who won his Nobel Prize in 2000 along with Daniel McFadden. Both of them received it in econometrics, which is a statistical field in economics. And Heckman in particular has helped us rethink entirely how we think about government programs. Are they successful? How do we know they're successful? What kinds of data do we need to collect? Can we make use of data that's out there? How do we understand how much people actually earn and why they earn what they earn? These are all very important questions in economics, and I think more generally to people in society. So, yeah, he's been very influential on what I do.
Absolutely, yeah. All right, so the next question we've sort of touched on before. What type of individual does well in economics? And Nikki, maybe I'll throw this to you as someone that came from outside economics, right? So we've already mentioned the characteristics of being curious and skeptical. What else do you see would make for a good economist?
So I think a lot of it is about being able to look at something and ask questions about it. So if someone tells me that, I don't know, the South African government has made a poor decision about something recently, an economist would need to interrogate that question, ask why that person drew that conclusion. Is there another possible explanation for the decision making that led them to draw that conclusion? And basically just question everything and don't take supposedly causal effects for granted. So, you know, often people see little bits of evidence and put together crazy stories about how one thing causes another thing. An economist will question that and will say, well, are we sure that A causes B? Is it not possible that B causes A? Or that C causes both A and B?
Oh, that rules out my parents becoming economists. Duma, what else do you have to add on that? I think this is a really interesting discussion to have about what gets us into economics and what makes for a good one.
Sure. I also think from a student's perspective, what I've found from the students that I teach, the ones that happen to do really well, are the individuals that are able to take what has been taught within a lecture hall and then proceed to apply that to actual real world events. So does this apply to this industry, or does this apply to a particular country? And I think questioning what has been taught and seeing whether it applies in certain instances enables you to sort of deepen your understanding of what has been taught. And I think that is actually quite helpful.
Absolutely. All right. Next question is from Andile. What does it take to become an economist? Oh, Steve, I think we'll give this one to you as the boss. You get the final say on what it takes to become an economist. Apart from all the characteristics you see in us as your fellow staff, what else are we looking for?
Someone else? So to become an economist, obviously, We've seen that you don't have to necessarily study economics. I think that's maybe not the thing I should be saying in the Choose UP Economics Day, but let's say it anyway. It's important to be very curious and to be able to critique and to not take things for granted. Economists are critical, and not just critical, they're curious. So to become an economist, it helps to take the economics modules. I think it's at least as important to read, to pay attention to current events, and I think you should be reading outside of economics. Duma mentioned Gary Becker, who actually spent quite a bit of time reading biology research. So you see people that are economists expanding their knowledge well outside of the field. So to become an economist, you need to be somebody that thinks widely, acts widely.
Thank you, Steve. Yes, and if I can add to that, I think one of the things you'll learn as economics students when you choose UP is also the importance of ideas, right? New ideas is the lifeblood of economies, keeping on growing, etc. And that partly explains why we are such a diverse department, as well as faculties, is because we know in order to grow and become better, we need to incorporate and bring in new ideas all the time. So we're certainly looking forward to the new ideas you guys will bring in over time and to make us even better. We've got the next question from Roxanne. This is a quite interesting and important one, asking, especially based on what we've just heard, do I need economics as a subject in matric to qualify for BCom economics? Steve, will you maybe rehash your previous answer a little bit and just provide further clarity on that?
Absolutely. So the short answer is no. We will teach the economics in the degree program, so you don't have to take it in high school. If you've taken it, great. You might have a slight leg up on some of the other students, but not necessarily, because we take economics quite a bit further than what you'll see in high school.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Steve. Mandlakazi asks, if we do really well, are we able to change from the extended program to the normal BCom economics degree program? And we get these cases quite often. So, Steve, sorry to throw this again at you. Can you just give us the technicalities surrounding that?
The technicalities are probably not all that complicated. So the extended program is your chance to shine. So maybe you didn't quite do as well in matric as you thought you were going to, or maybe some other unlucky break befell and you weren't quite able to get into the standard programs. But the extended program gives you the chance to grow, to do better, and to show us that this is where you want to be. And in fact, we had a student, I forget how many years ago, this is bad planning on my part, I should have looked it up. But I think 3 years ago, one of our top students went through the extended program and did exceptionally well as an undergrad. So it is perfectly possible to switch through into the main programs. But yes, you do need to do well.
Thank you. And then our final question, how does shifting from the BCom General to the BCom Economics or Econometrics program work? And I'm going to break that question up a little bit to bring Duma and Nikki in as well. So before we get into the technicalities, Steve, which again I'll throw your side, is Duma and Nikki, we all work with the undergraduates, and we see quite a variety of students who we engage with and the different, just how they approach economics as a science. What have you seen that really interested you, or sort of, some interesting pointers to students who may not take the traditional route into the BCom Economics program? Any thoughts on that, Duma or Nikki?
Yeah, well, I guess we have students who take economics courses from, as you said, a variety of different courses. And it's quite nice to see, especially I teach the honors level as well. And we see quite often people coming who didn't necessarily plan to get as far as an economics honors, who maybe did an undergrad majoring in statistics or something like that, who still managed to move across to economics just because they found that really interesting. And certainly in discussions and so on, those people bring a different perspective. So we also have PPE, politics, philosophy, economics students, and those guys also often have some interesting insights. So it's nice that we get people from a range of different backgrounds who able to bring different insights and different questions and different ways of looking at things.
I've also come to interact with students that have not necessarily sort of shifted degree programs, but have actually just stuck within their own degree program, say become accounting sciences, and have actually continued to take economics throughout, if you know, scheduling allowed. And that too also provides a very interesting or unique sort of contribution to just the student body, but also to the lecturers as well, because they pose very interesting questions that you would need to think about, because they come at it from a completely different perspective.
Absolutely. And before we allow Steve to give us those technicalities, I can also just say, often to the listeners and the viewers here, I think at this stage, very few of you have a good understanding of what an economist does. And I think that's why we often see this, right, is when students get to learn what economics is about during their undergraduate studies, where they take economics either as an elective or part of their core coursework, that's when they really get interested, and when we see them wanting to shift, like you said, Nikki, into economics in the postgraduate program, because they've gotten these ideas and they want to learn to answer it with the techniques we teach them. So it's certainly very interesting, often the shifts we see as students move through the degree program towards economics. But Steve, any other technicalities we need to be aware of to make that transition be as smooth as possible?
So pretty much everybody in the faculty takes the same first year, and so it's really quite simple to switch at the end of the first year. If you want to switch later than that, then it starts to become potentially problematic, because you may not have the right second year modules or something along those lines. But in principle, this is quite simple. You go down to the faculty admin, or you come to the department and you say, yeah, I'm studying BCom General, or I'm studying BCom Accounting, and you know, or even we've had this, somebody comes from computer science and says, you know, I'd like to switch, will you help us? And at the end of the day, that's what we're here for. So we find a way to help you make that switch and fill out the right paperwork and make sure that you don't get held back any further than is necessary when you make these switches.
Thank you, Steve. And the Department of Economics' door is always open if you wanted to come and talk to a staff member about moving into economics and what the various requirements are. We are more than willing to help you. The door is always open. All right, that's it from the Q&A. Thank you very much. If I can thank our panel, Duma, Nikki, Steve, for helping us and the viewers understand the program a bit better. It's almost time for us to end now, but before we do, we've got one more prize, remember. So our second bookmark voucher goes to Taonga Piri. Congratulations. I'm sure Bookmark will get in touch with you. I hope that this session has been useful for those of you watching today. Should you be interested in learning more, you can always contact us directly. I'm sure you all know how to handle Facebook and Twitter and the web pages by now. Good luck in your final exams. I hope that all goes well in this rather strange and odd year we are all in. Stay strong, and we look forward to seeing you next year. Choose UP.